amidst the tranquil beauty of Shropshire, England, unfolded a narrative of sorrow and despair that left a lasting impact on an entire community. At the center of this narrative was Georgia Williams, a bright young soul whose aspirations were tragically extinguished by an incomprehensible act of cruelty. Georgia, with her boundless energy and dreams, embodied the essence of youth's vitality and optimism. Yet, beneath her cheerful demeanor, lay shadows of turmoil that would eventually eclipse her promising future. Georgia Williams entered the world on September 17, 1995, in Telford, Shropshire, England. Growing up in a tight-knit family with her parents Lynette and Steve Williams, alongside her older sister Scarlett, Georgia's upbringing was filled with love and support. From a young age, Georgia exhibited a compassionate nature, always eager to lend a helping hand and ensure the happiness of those around her. However, this admirable quality would eventually become a vulnerability. Despite facing bullying during her middle school years, Georgia's transition to high school marked a significant turning point. She found herself embraced by a circle of friends, becoming a popular and beloved figure within the school community. Her compassionate nature and leadership skills were evident as she ascended to the role of head girl. Alongside her academic pursuits, Georgia pursued her passion for service by training as an air cadet, nurturing dreams of serving as an RAF paramedic in the future. Upon reaching 17 years old, Georgia secured a position at a local petrol station, where she quickly established rapport with her colleagues. Among them was Jamie Reynolds, a 22-year-old man who appeared withdrawn and marginalized within the group. Moved by her compassionate disposition, Georgia extended a hand of friendship towards him, determined to alleviate his sense of isolation. Through her efforts, Jamie gradually integrated into the social fabric of their workplace, joining in group activities and forging connections with his peers. As time passed, Jamie found himself developing affection for Georgia, recognizing her as the sole individual who had shown him kindness and believed in his potential. Fueled by hope, he began to entertain the possibility that Georgia might reciprocate his feelings. Encouraged by this belief, Jamie summoned the courage to express his sentiments to Georgia, expressing his desire to pursue a romantic relationship with her, even envisioning the prospect of becoming her boyfriend. However, Georgia, mindful of Jamie's emotions, gently declined his advances, conveying her reluctance to embark on a romantic entanglement and emphasizing her commitment to preserving their friendship. Despite his disappointment over Georgia's lack of romantic interest, Jamie appeared to accept her decision and endeavored to maintain their friendship. However, beneath the surface, a disturbing obsession and sinister fantasy began to take root within him. During a shift together at the petrol station, Jamie confided in Georgia about his dissatisfaction with his current circumstances. Expressing a desire to abandon his job at the petrol station and pursue his passion, Jamie hinted at aspirations of forging a career aligned with his interests. Eager to offer her support to Jamie, Georgia engaged him in a conversation to explore his hobbies and passions. Learning of Jamie's interest in photography, Georgia seized the opportunity to encourage him to pursue it as a potential career path. Enthusiastic about the idea, Jamie requested Georgia's assistance in crafting a professional portfolio and proposed her as his inaugural model. Honoring her commitment to their friendship, Georgia agreed to assist, and together they scheduled a photo shoot for Sunday, May 26, 2013. The arrangement entailed Georgia and a few mutual friends convening at Jamie's parental residence for the photo shoot. As Sunday approached, Georgia found herself torn between conflicting obligations. With her family hosting a barbecue and her long-unseen grandparents in attendance, Georgia contemplated canceling the photo shoot at the last minute. However, mindful of Jamie's reliance on her and unwilling to disappoint him, Georgia ultimately resolved to honor her commitment. Assuring her family that she would only be a brief 5-minute drive away from Jamie's residence, Georgia planned to swiftly capture a few photographs before rejoining her family. In doing so, she aimed to fulfill her obligations to both her friend and her family, ensuring that neither party would be let down. On that particular day, Georgia swiftly prepared herself, styling her hair and applying makeup before donning jeans and a leather jacket. As she left home at 7:30 p.m., her father complimented her, remarking on her beauty and likening her appearance to Sandy from the movie Grease. With her family anticipating her prompt return, Georgia embarked on her journey. However, as the hours passed without her arrival, concern began to grow among her loved ones. Initially, her mother dismissed the delay, assuming Georgia had become engrossed in the photo shoot or socializing with friends. Sending a text to inquire about the photo shoot's conclusion, her mother received a response from Georgia, indicating that the photo shoot had ended some time ago and that she was spending time with friends, suggesting she might return home late. Unperturbed by the exchange, Georgia's mother interpreted the text as typical, noticing the customary trio of kissy face emojis that often punctuated her daughter's messages. Given Georgia's responsible nature, her mother harbored no suspicions of trouble. As the night progressed, Georgia's parents retired to bed, assuming she would return home by morning. However, upon awakening the next day, their unease mounted upon realizing Georgia's continued absence. Concerned, her mother reached out to her via text at 6:30 a.m., seeking an explanation for her prolonged absence. It wasn't until 7:30 a.m. that a response arrived, claiming Georgia had stayed over at a friend's house and her phone battery was dwindling. She reassured her mother that if she didn't respond further, it was due to her phone's impending shutdown. Unbeknownst to Georgia's mother, these messages were not authored by her daughter, setting off alarm bells as the situation grew increasingly ominous. On May 27th, Georgia's parents anticipated her return home after a music festival. However, when she failed to arrive, they assumed she had gone directly to the festival from her friend's house. Nevertheless, they expected her back by the following morning, as she had eagerly awaited her first driving lesson scheduled for that day. As the night wore on without Georgia's return, her parents grew increasingly anxious. Waiting up late into the night yielded no sign of her. With panic setting in, they reached out to relatives and friends, hoping for any information about her whereabouts. Yet, despite their efforts, no one had seen or heard from Georgia in days, deepening their concern and uncertainty. When Georgia failed to arrive home the following morning for her eagerly anticipated driving lesson, her family took immediate action, reporting her disappearance to the police. Desperate for answers, they provided authorities with all the information they could gather. However, their knowledge was limited to Georgia's attendance at a photo shoot at Jamie Reynolds' residence, with no further details about her whereabouts or companions after that point. In response, the police launched an investigation, focusing their attention on Jamie Reynolds. What they uncovered about him sent chills down their spines, revealing disturbing details that raised further concerns about Georgia's safety. Back in 2008, Jamie found himself in police crosshairs after an incident involving the attempted strangulation of a teenage girl. Despite the gravity of the situation, law enforcement opted for a cautionary approach, issuing Jamie a warning and allowing him to walk free without charges. However, when authorities stumbled upon this troubling episode in Jamie's past, their suspicions intensified. With Jamie emerging as the prime suspect in Georgia Williams' disappearance, police wasted no time in paying him a visit. Arriving at his residence, they encountered silence upon knocking on the door, compelling them to take more drastic action. Resorting to forced entry, they combed through the premises but found no trace of Jamie. Thus, a frenzied manhunt ensued as authorities intensified their efforts to track down the elusive suspect. After thorough inquiries at the petrol station, it became evident that none of their co-workers had encountered Jamie or Georgia. Their absence from their shifts raised significant alarms, as they deviated from their usual routine. Although Jamie's parents were unreachable due to their vacation, they provided authorities with crucial information regarding the registration of Jamie's van. Armed with this vital lead, police across Shropshire promptly disseminated alerts to law enforcement agencies nationwide, urging them to be on high alert for Jamie's van. Before long, authorities tracked Jamie down in Glasgow, Scotland, a staggering 208 miles from his home. His sudden departure from the country sent shockwaves, serving as a glaring indicator of suspicious behavior. On May 30th, Glasgow police apprehended Jamie Reynolds at a modest hotel, acting on suspicions of kidnapping. Taken into custody without delay, he faced immediate interrogation regarding Georgia's whereabouts. However, Jamie maintained ignorance of her location, offering no helpful insights to investigators. Subsequently, he was escorted back to Shropshire for further questioning. As Georgia's loved ones anxiously awaited updates, they received disheartening news regarding the investigation's progress. The grim outlook devastated the family, amplifying their anguish. With Jamie now detained as the primary suspect, law enforcement seized the opportunity to scour his residence for any pertinent evidence thoroughly. Amidst the search, authorities stumbled upon a camera containing an SD card. However, their hopes of uncovering vital clues were dashed upon discovering that all files had been systematically deleted, leaving investigators grappling with yet another frustrating setback. The camera underwent forensic examination at the police station, where experts diligently worked to retrieve the deleted files. Upon successful recovery, the retrieved data delivered a chilling denouement to the investigation. Among the recovered files were several images captured on the day of the photo shoot, offering a haunting glimpse into Georgia's final moments. The initial photographs depicted Georgia in seemingly ordinary poses at the outset of the photo shoot, confirming her presence at Jamie's residence that fateful day. Despite her outward appearance of contentment and compliance, it was evident that Georgia remained oblivious to the sinister intentions lurking beneath Jamie's facade. Tragically, she unwittingly walked into a perilous situation, unaware of the impending danger that ultimately befell her. As authorities sifted through the images, the tone grew increasingly grim and unsettling. Subsequent photographs revealed a harrowing sequence of events, portraying a distraught Georgia stripped of her clothes, standing vulnerable atop a red recycling bin, her hands seemingly bound behind her with a hanging rope ominously overhead. Tragically, the footage captured Jamie Reynolds' heinous acts as he callously filmed Georgia's final moments, depicting her futile struggle for breath. Shockingly, he proceeded to engage in despicable acts of necrophilia, violating her lifeless body in various rooms of the house, including his parents' bed. To compound the horror, Jamie documented his depravity with hundreds of additional photographs, showcasing Georgia in degrading positions. He callously stripped her of her jewelry, preserving them as grotesque trophies of his heinous crime. The police relentlessly scoured Jamie's residence, unearthing a staggering collection of 16,800 graphic photographs and 72 distressing videos. These explicit materials depicted unimaginable acts of violence, including sexual assault, and snuff films showcasing torture and murder. Shockingly, it became apparent that Jamie himself was actively engaged in the creation of his snuff film, a chilling revelation. In a disturbing admission, he even confessed to deriving pleasure from acts of strangulation. Alarmed by their son's dark fascination, Jamie's parents abruptly cut short their vacation to meet with the authorities. During their conversation, they disclosed that Jamie had been exposed to this disturbing brand of ultra-violent pornography since he was just 14 years old. It is conceivable that his exposure to such content could have occurred even earlier, though their intervention came about when they discovered his activities. As they were unable to confiscate his laptop since he required it for school, they reached out to the internet provider and arranged for access to certain websites to be blocked. Nevertheless, at the age of 14, he independently contacted the internet provider and secured his own private Wi-Fi by making the payment, ensuring that his parents remained unaware of his continued access to these websites. When his parents initially discovered him viewing these videos, they grew alarmed and informed the police and Child Protective Services. However, they were informed that no action could be taken as viewing such content was not deemed illegal. During the investigation, law enforcement discovered a collection of notepads containing 40 distinct narratives penned by Jamie. These stories revolved around the themes of inflicting harm, sexual assault, and the killing of women. Additionally, it was uncovered that Jamie had scoured social media platforms, printing and marking images of young girls with nooses around their necks. Among the narratives was one titled Georgia Williams in Surprise, mirroring the tragic events that befell Georgia. Authorities suspect that this particular narrative may have been a premeditated plan, conceived from the outset to be actualized. Jamie initiated the writing process in January, completing it a mere 3 weeks before the murder occurred. Jamie stubbornly withheld any information regarding the whereabouts of Georgia's body, vehemently maintaining his innocence. Faced with his refusal to cooperate, investigators embarked on a painstaking journey to retrace Jamie's movements from the Monday morning following Georgia's murder. Their investigative trail commenced at the petrol station, where surveillance footage captured Jamie refueling his vehicle. Little did anyone know at the time that Georgia's lifeless body lay concealed in the back of his van. Following the fuel stop, Jamie embarked on a journey spanning 60 miles, eventually arriving at a movie theater. Remarkably, he callously abandoned Georgia's remains in the van, parked within the theater's lot, before proceeding inside to indulge in a film screening. In a disturbing turn of events, Jamie's actions at the movie theater represented his twisted attempt to fulfill his desire to take Georgia out on a date, albeit in a macabre and horrifying manner. However, law enforcement lost track of Jamie following his departure from the theater, prompting authorities to issue a public appeal for information regarding his whereabouts. Fortunately, this appeal yielded results, with individuals coming forward to report sightings of Jamie's van in the vicinity of the Nanty Garth mountain pass near Wrexham. This area, abundant with dense woodland and treacherously muddy terrain, served as the backdrop for Jamie's attempt to evade capture. Recollections of Jamie and his van were vivid among locals, particularly due to an incident where his vehicle became mired in mud. Good Samaritans had intervened to help extricate it from the muck. Acting on this crucial tip, law enforcement ventured into the wooded area where Jamie had been spotted. Tragically, it was in this secluded setting that they made the grim discovery of Georgia's unclothed body. Following the recovery, Georgia's remains were transported back to Shropshire. A subsequent post-mortem examination revealed that Georgia had succumbed to asphyxiation, likely resulting from pressure applied to her neck by a ligature. Additionally, forensic analysis uncovered bruising on her back, indicative of Jamie having forcefully pressed her downward using his knee, exacerbating her helplessness and suffering. Despite steadfastly maintaining his innocence and denying any involvement in her murder, Jamie's stance took a dramatic shift on the inaugural day of the trial in December 2013. Without warning, he opted to rise and plead guilty to all charges leveled against him. In a poignant moment, Georgia's father addressed the court, articulating the enduring anguish he and his wife bore from the haunting image of their daughter's lifeless body, lying in the solemn confines of the hospital's chapel of rest, an indelible scar etched upon their souls for eternity. Throughout the trial, revelations surfaced regarding Jamie's prior brushes with the law. In 2008, he had attracted police attention, receiving what the judge deemed a final warning, following an unsettling incident involving the confinement of another 17-year-old girl in his residence, a harrowing precursor to the tragedy that befell Georgia. In 2011, he found himself under scrutiny once more after an incident where he recklessly reversed his car into that of a girl who rebuffed his romantic advances. Despite this alarming behavior, the case was eventually closed. However, the judge, Mr. Justice Wilkie, did not mince words, labeling Jamie a sexual deviant and expressing grave concerns about his potential to escalate to become a dangerous serial offender. Consequently, Jamie was handed a whole life term, a sentence reserved for the most heinous of crimes, ensuring he would spend the rest of his days behind bars without the possibility of parole. This marked Jamie as the 46th individual to receive such a sentence, setting a grim record as the youngest in history to be condemned to a whole life term. Justice Wilkie's remarks during sentencing painted a chilling portrait of the events, underscoring the profound anguish inflicted upon Georgia. He emphasized the torturous nature of her ordeal, highlighting Jamie's twisted fixation with violent and sadistic pornography, culminating in a grotesque display of power over his victim as she faced a harrowing demise. Jamie Reynolds bowed his head in shame as Georgia's grief-stricken parents and sister listened to the harrowing details of her tragic demise and the horrors she endured at his hands. The courtroom was filled with unbearable tension as the jury was confronted with the gruesome images depicting Georgia's final moments, prompting her devastated family to flee in anguish. In 2014, Reynolds sought to appeal his whole life sentence but was met with defeat. The following year, a serious case review castigated police officers, children's services personnel, and mental health professionals for their handling of Reynolds before the murder. The review highlighted systemic failures in interagency collaboration, when Reynolds had previously come to law enforcement's attention 5 years earlier, following an incident where he attempted to strangle another girl at his residence. Georgia's parents expressed profound sorrow upon reading the report, lamenting the missed opportunities to intervene and prevent their daughter's tragic fate, stating, "Having lost Georgia to pure evil, we cried when we read this report and the failings of all agencies involved, because it was so obvious that Reynolds was, if not one already, a murderer in the making. Georgia's death could have been prevented." Outside the courtroom, Mr. Williams expressed the family's profound grief, stating, "There is no sentence that we can ever say we're satisfied with because it'll never bring Georgia back. She's dead, she's gone physically and lives in our hearts." He emphasized the irreparable loss they experienced and lamented that, regardless of the length of Reynolds' prison term, he still retained the one precious gift he had denied their daughter: life. The one thing that will always get to us and cause us grief is the fact that even though Jamie Reynolds is serving a full life sentence, he still has life to hang on to," Mr. Williams remarked. Jamie Reynolds continues to serve his sentence in prison to this day. George's mother, Lynette, has since penned their journey of grief in her book, Our Georgia, which delves into the family's profound sense of betrayal, stemming from the failures that allowed Reynolds, with his disturbing fixation on snuff movies, to roam free and ultimately commit murder. Described as a powerful and moving memoir, the book serves as both a tribute to George's memory and a poignant exploration of the aftermath of her tragic death. George's tragic passing inflicted irreparable wounds upon those who cherished her, leaving behind an unfathomable void. Her absence stands as a poignant reminder of the fleeting nature of life and the importance of treasuring each precious moment with our loved ones. In the wake of her loss, the community united in solidarity, offering unwavering support to George's grieving family and friends, providing a source of solace during their darkest days. If you found this video compelling, leave a like. In your thoughts in the comments, be sure to subscribe and check out our other videos.